25, 5:01 p.m. Meeting is called to order. First, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, now do a quick roll call. Bernie Kraus,
Bernie's there.
John Gephardt,
Yep.
Michael Schaefer. No. Mark Mayer,
Here.
Vincent Susie.
Here.
Whoa, he sure is, with a friend. Dominic Crescivino. No, Dominic. Eric Nelson.
Here.
All right. Manuel Romeo. I'm sorry if I said the name wrong.
Manny, you there? No.
All right. Zeke
Here.
and Suzanne.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Thank you everyone for coming. I know Wednesday's kind of a weird night to do this. I really appreciate it. You all had a chance to review this evening's agenda. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
The agenda is adopted. Did everyone have a chance to review the February 14th meeting minutes? I believe I sent those along with the request for feedback. If I could have a motion to approve those?
Hey guys.
Yeah, motion to accept.
All right. Second?
Second, anybody?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So the minutes are approved from February 14th. All right, do we have any public comments? I don't see anybody here live. Is there anybody on the phone, Kate? No. All right, that was easy. Okay. The first item on the agenda is really we're going to kind of revisit what we started to talk about at the last meeting. We have a Brown Advisory Board that invests our money for us and takes care of our accounts. And we had an outdated policy implementation plan that we were looking at before, so circulated the new one. And I think, you know, the discussion that we need to continue is without Brown in the room, because at that point they were sitting there, so we really couldn't, you know, necessarily speak freely. So I would like to start with any comments and impressions from that meeting, any discussion topics from anybody on the committee.
If I can interject here. Bill, can you give us the scaled down version of the investment policy? I mean, it's online. I don't know if everybody's read our investment policy, but it's very detailed of, you know, because, you know, we're dealing with the public's money, so we have to be good stewards of that.
I mean, it is an attachment of tonight's agenda.
I don't know if you could summarize it quickly.
I don't think I can.
Well, I can just give briefly,
I'm
you know,
sorry.
Yeah.
it talks about, you know, we have sort of some guardrails of what percentage of the portfolio of each type of account can be invested in what kind of instruments. And I think, you know, for me, the question that I had was, okay, we saw, Brown gave us sort of their report of where we are and what we're invested in. What I struggled with was, is that the best allocation within those guardrails? Are there other things that they could do? Are there recommendations that they have that might get us a better return? You know, maybe some others came away with more, but for me, I came away a little bit flat. You know, are we sort of had benchmarks against other funds, but like Paul asked the question, how are we doing against their investments for other towns? And is that typical? And so, you know, my thought was maybe to go back to them and have them talk about what other things they might be able to do, if anything, to improve our return within the guardrails that are there, because they were operating off of an older version as well.
I remember it, I wasn't at the last meeting, but I remember listening in some of their sessions before, and you can sit there and say, well, Paul made 33% return on investment for his last year because of this, but Paul may also have a high risk, I wanna go ahead and roll the dice and do this, and they were saying the towns can't do it. Like you say, the guardrails, no matter, somebody's always gonna have a better, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. And they're sure we could have made another 200,000, 500,000, whatever, but you can't because rolling the dice also entails snake eyes sometimes.
Sure, but yeah, they've picked certain ways that they're investing it, right? And there might be different fees, there might be like, did they pick the right, it's not like you just pick a particular, CD or whatever, or bond fund or whatever it is. They picked it for a reason, and are there other ones? I think that would be the question that I have, but and so that might just, if I had a recommendation to make on that, would be to go back to them and ask them some more information like that.
So this came up a couple meetings ago, a couple months ago, during a commissioners meeting. What Zeke is saying is correct. And Commissioner Persinger brought up the fact that we need to have it in something that's going to be safe and not that we may be at high risk. And that was a decision I thought made by the commissioners, how they wanted this invested.
No, I'm not worried about that, but I
Yeah.
mean, and maybe it's only maybe the portfolio is only getting, whatever, 4%, but could it get 4.1 or, again, 'cause even a little percentage, it's a big amount of money,
It
so
is.
it's
A lot of
not,
money.
it's not nothing, so, so it does make a pretty big swing, so that would be, and I guess the other thing is it'd be interesting to see what other municipalities do. The other question I would have is, and I'm new to this committee too, but when is the last time that we looked at financial investment people, period, and what fees various ones charge, or I don't know what Brown charges us, against those accounts, I don't have those details, but is that, is it high, low, and, could we do better? I just don't know, and is it worth
So-
exploring that?
So we had Fulton Bank, right, Sheena, come in and do a presentation about taking the money possibly and investing it through Fulton. And at that time, the chair of the investment committee heard Fulton Bank's presentation, the committee heard it, and the decision was to stay with Brown Advisory. That was what, 2 years ago? Year and a half ago, we brought that up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before that, it was,
They had Edward Jones years ago.
yeah, it was, I've been here almost 8 years and it's been over 8 years.
Yeah, and again, I'm not.
If I may interject, Fulton Bank made a presentation. The committee received it and did not discuss it.
And we did ask, when we were just the investment committee, if there were benchmarks that they could provide. And I did some search to see if they were published benchmarks of our size. If there's anything out there that they offered, I could find. I have to check with other investment advisories that I'm involved in through work and things like that. And it's not, it's not, there's not a compound yet for the municipalities. The other thing I mentioned is that I've served on investment committees for other nonprofits, municipalities. And everybody I've talked to has advised against moving money into the region, or any of those kinds of things, even what we in general, just off of that.
Iris and team, it's Vinny. I have a few thoughts here. And maybe Brown did this, but maybe I just missed it. I mean, they should come to the table for us as clients and be very clear on what we are invested in currently and what that performance has been for the last 3 to 5 years. And then come to the table with options for us to be less risk adverse and show us what those returns have been over the last 3 to 5 years. And then on the flip side, give us 1 or 2 options on where we could have been more risk adverse and maybe earned a few more dollars in terms of gains, so that we have, a full picture of where we are, where we could have been with less risk, and where we could have been with more risk, and then make an informed decision about whether we want to adjust where we are. I mean, that's what a typical financial advisor would do for anyone. And that's what my actual financial advisor does for me.
We asked them that, it's very clear what we are investing in my opinion, in terms of what they're providing. But they're so hamstrung in one word. They're very constrained by what commissioners tell them when you can invest. And they every time we've asked them, they basically look. I mean, this is given what you told us we can invest in, given the profile you're saying, this is as good as it's going to get. And you go shop that 100 times. Unless the commissioners are fundamentally, looking to change the risk profile. I mean, I just don't know that you invest a whole lot of time and effort. You have to end it. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, so you're just not thinking we can move the needle, really.
Excuse me. I for whatever reason, I'm having a tough time hearing what Eric is saying. His transmission.
Brilliant. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Eric, I think it's your microphone or something.
If someone could give me just a short kind of summary of what Eric's saying, I apologize. I just can't hear him.
I would like the same because I couldn't either.
I fixed it. I think it was my fault. Honestly.
There we go.
Yeah, sorry about that. What I was
Thank
telling
you.
John is that we've asked, when we were on the investment committee, we asked him several times, is this the best we can do? Are there other things? We asked him about a municipal benchmark to compare performance against. There isn't one. I researched, there isn't one. I asked folks that I know in the industry, they don't have one. Not sure anybody can come up with a benchmark. And then the other piece is that, fundamentally, in my opinion, unless the commissioners are willing to relax the investment profile that is codified, that they must adhere to, I don't know that they're going to be able to do any better. Anybody else is going to be able to do any better with what they can do. And I question how much time we should invest and how much time we should ask them invest on dealing with hypotheticals that nobody's going to permit or follow through on. Again, just my opinion.
Well, one of the things we look at the two funds, the operational funds. Now, supposedly that's what Gary was talking about, was we can't lose money. Got to keep that up. But then at our last meeting, he said, and Bill and Sheena, if you could confirm, the funds in Brown are not really the operational for rainy day funds?
The funds that are in Brown that are operational were originally, when the rainy day fund was set up, were supposed to be for the rainy day fund. It was not implemented due to misunderstanding and miscommunication. The discussion of the commissioners was to possibly, if the finance committee was for it, was to possibly bring those funds into a liquid bank account where it's earning 4% minimum, such as our other funds are earning with a sweep account, and set that up, all of our, set our rainy day funds up, earning all of them in a bank account, earning the 4% or more with the bank account, and have all of our operating funds separated from the beach tax funds.
Well, and that's our second agenda item.
Yeah, that's where that discussion had been going.
Well, hold on a minute. Having been on the old investment committee, that's not quite how I remember it. What I remember it was, we were told by Gary that that 1.6 mil, don't touch. Got to keep it And that's what drove the investment policy. And then at last meeting, he said, I took the notes, he said something to the effect of, hey, no more. It's not Brown anymore. There's another source for the rainy day funds. That's what I want to know. Is there another source other than Brown for the rainy day funds?
It was originally, the rainy day funds were originally supposed to be put in Brown. They weren't. And they are sitting in our the community bank account. And
Okay.
the discussion was to pull those operating funds out of Brown and to put all of the operating funds together.
Well, hold on a minute, because that's what's driving
So that's
our
what I
low
can
rate of
understand.
return.
Okay.
Well, I
Is
think,
the fact
can I,
Go ahead.
can I, inter-
I yield the floor.
Okay.
can I interject something? Since my name's been used a couple of times here. It is true that originally when the rainy day fund was set up, and you can see this in the fund balance policy, you'll see that the $1.4 million, or I think it was $1.3 million at the time we established the fund balance policy, that $1.3 million that's in Brown was supposed to be the lion's share of the rainy day fund. That never happened. And instead, that rainy day fund exists at various banks at this point in some set of sweep accounts. They're currently earning interest, and the interest on that account or those accounts are being used for operating funds. This was a surprise certainly to me and to the rest of the commissioners, I believe, that in fact that $1.4 million that is at Brown was created from surplus operating funds over the past several years, that is not counted as part of the rainy day fund. It is accounted for. It is audited. I can point to it in our audit reports, but we had never really done a good comparison of what's reported in the audit reports with what we're getting on a monthly basis. So, I think the information that's been provided so far is all correct, but I just want to verify that in fact, and just the question as Sheena posed it is that, do we want to leave that $1.4 million at Brown, or do we want to put it bring it into a bank account, into a sweep account, in which you could earn a guaranteed 4%. You're not getting that at Brown right now. The current performance of that $1.4 million is, I believe, about 1.1 or 1.3% over the last 12 months. The investment policy, though, was driven by separate considerations. I think perhaps in some sense, the consideration for the operating fund at Brown, that $1.4 million, was very conservative because we didn't want to risk the loss of that fund, because any money in that fund, because we wanted to preserve our rainy day fund, because that's part of our fund balance policy. Whether or not you want to loosen up on that is up to you guys in terms of what you would like to recommend. Or a later agenda item, consider taking that and putting that money into a sweep account with a bank.
And to add to what Commissioner Persinger just said, there are 4 separate accounts, so to speak, at Brown Advisory. 3 of them are the beach replenishment, and that's not what we're talking about. There is an additional fund that's about 1.4 that we're trying to figure out what to do with.
And I'm just looking at the investment policy, and just, it's the target allocation is 50% equities, 60% fixed income, 40% cash and cash equivalents. And so that's just FYI. I guess I'm not a financial advisor. The 1% is interesting to me because I have retirement stuff that is risk-free, but is very low risk. That my component of that is making a lot more than that. And so that leads me to say, well, this probably isn't a lot different from that. So I don't know, so that would be a question to ask. And so maybe the question to ask Brown, though, is if we were to loosen it up, what does that mean and what is the risk? So it's a variation on what the point that was made earlier. Because I think that the question is liquidity, maybe liquidity more, and there's I know a lot of my stuff, I can get the money in 2 days, even though it's in various bonds and things like that. Again, I'm just speaking my personal experience, so I don't know if that extends to everything else.
What agenda item were we discussing? Have we moved on to the second one?
No, we're still on the first one, and the investment policy, and do we have any action items we want to recommend or things we want to research with Brown that we could ask them to look at, that we could then recommend to the commissioner? So I don't know that we have a recommendation now, except to maybe we want to go do some homework with Brown. I don't think we need to go to the commissioners to do that, except you could say that's what we want to do. And if we don't want to do that, that's fine also. And I think that's really, let's finish that question, but I think they're related, because I also don't I'm also confused of how is an investment firm doing worse, and we can magically go to the bank and get 4%, and what bank account's getting 4%, because I sure as hell am not getting 4%. So how is that different? So if somebody can help me with that, I don't know. I mean,
Do we get a community? Do we get 4%?
We're getting 4% on our sweep accounts.
Okay.
and is that just what the bank pays back because of?
The sweep accounts these accounts are funds that are over the FDIC insured, and each night they go out and to various banks. The money gets invested in various banks throughout the nation up to the $250,000 limit that is insured by the FDIC. And we get 4% on those funds.
So we did an RFP to several different banks in the area. We were with Fulton.
Yeah.
And we wanted to see which bank would give us highest interest rate on this type of sweep account. And when we looked at everybody based on the RFP that came back in, Community Bank ended up doing the best for us, not only in the 4%, but also in fees.
The fees, I know we say it on the fees. So my other question, again, this is naive, and if we can take this offline or another time, but what is what drives that 4% interest rate? We've got a really volatile economy right now, right? Is that 4% forever? Is that 4% this year in perpetuity? Because we could move it, but I mean, if you're
It could turn to 3 tomorrow. We have no guarantee on.
No,
we're at 4.
We're at 4.
For how long? Forever?
For certain accounts, the ones that are, the sweep accounts, they have to have it's all of our accounts that are over the 250,000.
Over the 250,000.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this goes into, we have short and long-term investments, right? The sweep accounts, that's, what you have at the bank should be the stuff that you need to touch readily, correct? I mean, that's how we do it in our personal lives. But the stuff that's invested long-term, I always look at time as the equalizer, right? Stock markets go up, they go down, they go up, they go down. It's an everyday thing, but over a period of time, like the Beach Replenishment Fund, we've had that for almost 40 years now, right? Or 30 some years, right? Over 30 years, we've been conservative with it. And it's just, just for the public, if we're being good stewards of it, when you're making 20% return or 10% return in the market, you feel bad when you're making 2 or 3 or 4%. You're kicking yourself like, God, I could have made that much, So, that's an opportunity cost. And I guess what I look at and is more in the long term. Are we too conservative in our long-term strategy? It was fine when we had hundreds of thousands, but now we have millions. And, percent here and there makes a big difference. So, I just want to make sure that, we talk about it. We minimize risk, but maximize yield. And, I don't know if that's how, are we all comfortable with what we have today? Are we being too conservative? Are we being not conservative enough? So.
Sheena, could I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Iris, can I ask a question? Assuming that the rainy day fund stays in the bank account that it's in right now,
Yes, sir.
isn't it the case that the $1.4 million, most or all of that will have to go toward the new town hall? So we're talking about a short-term, an amount of money that really is only going to be managed for a short term. Isn't that the case?
Correct.
Okay.
So that's a good point, Gary. So if the 1 point, if we're gonna be at 4% for as long as we need, that 1.4, then and then we're gonna spend it, then is that what's gonna maximize it now?
I just keep it there. I don't think it's worth the hassle.
Yeah, because we're gonna need to spend that money in 18 months from now or so, give or take.
My thought.
I don't have a vote, so up to you guys.
So, so I guess we're going to, so I guess let's maybe just talk quickly about the two. I don't know if we've come to any conclusion here, but I know we are burning through our time a little bit. So for the policy implementation plan, as far as the plan itself goes, does anyone feel like, do we want to just leave it as is and proceed? Or do we think there's some homework we want to ask Brown about that per se and some sensitivity if we were to change it in any way?
We should that's Bernie. I think we should ask Brown to give a presentation with how to be a little bit more aggressive. And was it Eric or who made the suggestion before? Take a look at, hey, if we were more aggressive, we would have done this over the last couple of years. So I think that because we're still going to be leaving money in with Brown, so therefore we should ask them that to show us some different strategies, and then I don't think we really have enough to comment on changes to the policy until we can get that historical data. That was a good way to do it.
Yeah, yet stay consistent with our investment policy.
Yeah.
We've ranges we can stay within.
Yeah. And again, there's pros and cons, and I think what we don't have, we've for me anyway, and I'm just a data person, I feel like I've had a lot of I'm gonna tell you stuff, but not really what you said, sort of the substantiation. So, all right. And I don't know that we need, I have a tag up with Brown. I will have one within the next month or so just to kind of give them feedback. I don't believe that, I think we can just give that feedback. I don't think we need to make a recommendation, but Paul and Elizabeth can go back and provide.
I think the next step is, if talk to Brown, is there any movement within the ranges of our investment policy that would help us get a better yield? I mean, they have they have the perspective of what the next year, 2, 3 years are going to look like. So, get some of their feedback on that and make a recommendation. We take it up in between Gary, Elizabeth, myself, and David and Bill will come up with. We can vote on. Do we keep it the same, or do we move some, make some minor changes?
Yeah, so I'm gonna just try to summarize the action item and then see if we have consensus, and we could probably just do a motion so we can get it at least in a record or something. But the action is gonna be to go back to Brown and ask them to to provide us some analysis of potential alternatives within our investment policy that could possibly get us a better return. And also if there are some tweaks that they believe are low risk, what that could have done and why. And then that can just give us some information that we're looking for. Is that?
You could have said it better.
Okay, so, all right, so I'll go ahead and do I have a motion and accept to do that, or do I just do it? I'm
Somebody's
sorry,
gotta
I'm
make a
not like, I don't know which.
Somebody asked the motion.
Yes, move that I have that conversation.
So I'll motion.
All right, thank you.
Second, anybody?
I thought somebody on TV said second.
Yes, thank you. And Bernie, was that articulate enough for you to put in the minutes, or was I just babbling incoherently? I think. Uh-oh, he's mute.
You're on mute, Bernie. There you go.
All right, he said good. Thumbs up means good. All right. Then the next item was talking about transferring the operating funds from Brown to the bank. And so I think we've heard two things there. One is it's not that much long. We're going to use that money pretty fast, and does it matter?
So if I could just comment on possibly, so it's $1.4 million. Sheena and I feel it'd be better off that it was sitting with Community Bank in a sweep account, earning 4%. Could we use it over the next phase 1 of the new town hall police station? It's 430 days from the time they break ground to completion. And phase 2 of the EMS Sussex County paramedics is 170 days after that. The mayor and I met with the county commissioners the other day and got an extra $500,000 from them for their station. I've also put in for the community reinvestment grant of $4 million.
Nice.
Doesn't mean we're going to get anything, but we could get something. So we may use that $1.4 million if we don't get any additional grant money, or if we do get additional grant money, we may not have to use it, or maybe not all of it. Maybe 700,000 of it, maybe $1 million, and the other 400,000 sits in the sweep account. But at least we know if it's in that account, we're getting 4%.
And is there, okay, so then, well, for me, it gets back to then the other question of, you know, well, a couple, so is the guarantee of the 4%. And what would cause that to go down? How often do they update those rates?
Yeah.
They usually lock them in for like a year or 18 months or something like that.
It,
That's what our Lions Club has done.
Okay,
We went from just a straight, let's do this in a bank account, to like a money market account that's guaranteed.
okay.
we have been told it's 4%. It's not changing.
All right, and it's just due to the amount of money. And then that money I think, to recap what you said also, because I know people are concerned about that, it is basically comes out of multiple accounts that are under the FDIC insured limit, which means that that there is no risk to our investment in doing that. Because that was something that I know was raised before. Okay.
Correct.
All right.
I have one comment or a question. I've heard you said you've been told, is it in writing? What does the contract with the bank actually say?
I haven't looked at it in the past year, but I'm almost positive that it's an indefinite 4%. I can pull up my emails when I get home and look at it.
Yeah.
Because I think we probably have a parallel action, right? Like, I think we should get in writing what the details are of the community bank.
Yeah,
and
it was an
then we'll talk
RFP,
to
so there's
Brown,
some details
And then
to
we're
it.
gonna have it, and then we have the side by side, and I mean, again, the 4% to me sounds a lot better, so.
Right.
But if it's gonna be a longer time or there's a fuse on it, I just figured we just have that one, to me.
If I may, sweep account rates change by definition based on Fed indexes, rates, all different kinds of things. They're not set. I'm fine with moving the money to a sweep account and earning a little bit more. I am very much against moving it to a community bank of any kind. And I would also point out that Brown Advisory has sweep accounts that are guaranteed by Wells Fargo, much larger bank. End of rant.
Towns Bank is community bank after RFP and after we looked at all the different options coming in from each one of the banks that answered RFP. So that's why we're with community.
Brown didn't answer the RFP for that? Apparently not.
We have 3
And we
banks.
can't award anything to somebody who doesn't respond to an RFP.
Right, we have 3 banks we're approved for.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, but I guess the question is though.
Well, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
Brown isn't a bank.
They have sweep
RFP
accounts.
out for the bank. How can they do that?
Well,
A lot of advisory firms have sweep accounts because you got to remember that the advisories, their accounts are secured by a backing bank. In Brown's case, it's Wells Fargo. So they're able to offer that product through their primary banker on it. That's how the advisory firms do it.
I guess my only thing for possibly staying with Brown would be from the standpoint that things fluctuate depending on interest rates. The bonds are up, the money market, different things give more as rates shift. And so does Brown have more flexibility to move things around if we're keeping things longer, to constantly adjust it, assuming they're being proactive to do it? Again, that's what my financial guy is looking at for me.
Right.
And so his question is that money just sitting there and that's why it's 1%? Are they actively doing something with it that could do better?
I mean, to address Eric's concern there, I mean,
Yeah.
if we've awarded an RFP, what is the time frame that we've awarded it for? And, maybe that's a question for Brown. Why didn't you respond? Or else you don't respond to an RFP, you're not gonna get it awarded to you. So, and we just can't arbitrarily just move money without doing an RFP. So, if it's public's money, if I could do it personally, yes, but I can't do it.
Well, but isn't that what's being proposed, that we're moving money from Brown to community without an RFP?
True.
We're moving money to an approved bank
Yeah, to our bank.
that with the town, that the commissioners have approved us to work with. There are 3 banks that the town has approved for us to work with.
I'll repeat my position. I'm fine with putting it in a sweep account and earning more interest. The last place I would put it is in a community bank. And Brown offers a sweep account, so to me, there's no reason for moving it unless their rates are so widely out of line with what you could get at a community bank.
Right, so I think what we have here is probably not enough information or consensus to make a decision on this today. And so I think, again, the action around this one is to ask Brown if they have sweep accounts, and again, that's part of that initial thing, so I'll just add to that question. And then the second thing will be to get the written proposal or whatever the next level of account information from Community Bank about what they offer and the terms and conditions of that, and let us review that and talk about it next time. Is that?
That is,
Yeah,
Iris, yes, that is correct. There is also a concern, though, of having like money in like places.
Yes.
So that Brown would have the beach replenishment fund and any of the other funds would be together at Community Bank. It may not be the right decision, but that was one of the proposals for this conversation.
And it's just having two accounts for the same pot of money is the issue?
It had people confused because there are 4 accounts at Brown, and the assumption was that they were all beach replenishment and couldn't be touched. And it turns out that one of them actually isn't beach replenishment, but is part of rainy day.
Well, maybe, can we just rename that account and to be more explicit?
It specifically says it's an operating account.
Yeah, okay.
But people,
Well-
they hear Brown Advisory
Got it, okay.
and.
I think one of the things we need to do also is take a look at the RFP, and you have a contract with Community Bank now?
Yeah.
Okay, and look, we should look at if we're gonna make any decisions, we need to look at what the facts say. Were there any limitations? Like in my company thing we bid on or don't bid on, a lot of times they put stuff like, hey, you need to be in a certain radius from Dewey Beach, as an example, or you need to be someplace else. So if you had limits on there, that might be why Brown never bothered replying. So I'd like to just take a look at the RFP myself. And I think everybody on the committee should do that too.
Okay, it's posted, correct?
The RFP is,
Yeah, the RFP is posted.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, so I will get with Kate and help get the link to the RFP. We will get the information on the contract and then we'll compare that against the Brown information and action item in agenda item A, and then put all that together. I have a motion for that. I articulate it more clearly, but we're gonna add to
In order to collate all of the items in A and B,
we're gonna add to the Brown data request what kind of sweep accounts they have, and then we're gonna get the details of the account at Community, the potential account that they would offer and interest and what those terms are, et cetera.
I don't know how to summarize it, but I agree with what you said, so I promote
So
that.
let me see if I can try that.
Yeah, there you go.
What you're asking, you want to go back, discuss with Brown and find out if they have sweep accounts or some equivalent that could give a higher rate than we're earning now on our operational funds that we've got in there.
Yep.
My build on that would be to ask Brown what their ideas are, and if we're going to remove the constraints on that 1.4 million, and what would they suggest that either is a sweep account or is similar to the type of protections that a sweep account offers? In other words, let's not tell them how to do it.
Right.
That's what we want done. We want to make more money on that 1.4 million. My understanding is we don't believe that 1.4 million is constrained by the investment policy, unless I think that's what I heard. And so what do they think we should do with it?
And just keep in mind, if we don't get any additional grant money, we will be using that fund. So
Right.
it's gonna come out of there one way or another. You can either move it to community bank, you can leave it, but we may end up using it, we may not.
So the constraint then is that it's got to remain liquid.
Just,
Is that correct?
a quick point, you can make a decision to leave that $1.4 million there. You just have to also make a decision that that's going to be, at this point, half of the rainy day fund. You can change that policy, go back to the original policy that we intended when we set up the general fund balance policy. And that way you can leave the $1.4 million with Brown, invest it however you recommend, and the remaining part of the rainy day fund would be where it is now with Community Bank in a sweep account. So you don't have to use the money at Brown. You can leave it there.
Well, I think again, if we do this data gathering exercise, then I think we'll be in a
Right.
a good position to make a recommendation.
So that's the motion there, Bernie?
Well, let's see.
All right, we're gonna ask Brown.
Let's try that again. Eric, if you might want to take a stab at, what do you think we should say?
Given that we have 1.4 million that's not constrained by the investment policy, except that it must remain liquid and available to the town, much like a sweep account would. What does Brown have to offer that meets those criteria, either a sweep account or something similar that offers the same protection, investment protection?
So that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
And then the second part of that, and I don't think that's a motion, I think just you guys are gonna give us what you already have, so that's just the additional data. Okay.
And I do have a follow-up question for Gary. I'm sorry, I know you want to move on. Gary, did I understand correctly that the 1.4 million that we're talking about today, that lives at Community today?
No, is it Brown?
Okay, then I misunderstood what you said. Thank you.
It's the entire rainy day fund is at Community and is invested in sweep accounts.
Got it.
And my earlier point was the 1.4 could then be decided to be the lion's share of the rainy day fund as we originally intended, and leave the remaining part of the rainy day fund at Community Bank.
right.
I
I think,
just
Eric,
one
you-
other point, the 1.4 is constrained by, there is a part of the investment policy that talks about how that $1.4 million at Brown could be allocated. And I think it's something like 40% cash, 60% fixed income. I think Iris mentioned that earlier, but that is part of the,
Yeah, it's the short-term,
yeah, that's part of the short-term money, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm newly confused. So if it's governed by the investment policy today, according to those three allocation buckets, what is it that allows us to consider putting it in a sweep account anywhere? Which is not, the sweep account does not conform to those fiscal policy constraints.
Well, the investment policy governs what's the funds that are with Brown. So we've got the beach replenishment fund. We've got a long-term component of that. There's a short-term component, and then the general funds that are with Brown are only short-term. And there is a policy that governs those. So that money could be removed from Brown. There's nothing. I don't think the investment policy constrains the town from deciding to move any part of that money, the general fund money, at least the beach replenishment fund, I think, is restricted. We have to be careful about that, but the general fund money could be moved out of Brown and into a sweep account. You could also make a decision, and you would have to change the policy, I think, if you wanted to put that $1.4 million into a sweep account with Brown, then you would simply just have to make a change to your to the investment policy that would allow the town to do that.
It's curious to me that we have an investment policy that is specific to one entity.
yeah, I'm confused about like, does a sweep account, and this is a dumb question, again, not a finance major, is that a fixed income or cash equivalent or an equity? Which pot is a sweep account?
None of the above.
It's just.
Well, I think they are essentially cash, aren't they, though?
It is a cash account.
Yes.
Okay.
So
what we would say is because then
they are and they aren't. You don't. There's a gray area with sweep accounts, and they can put money into. Depending on how the policies and the rules are written at the institution, they can put money into other investment vehicles other than cash. I mean, fundamentally, leaving money in cash returns zero investment by definition. So they are. I don't want us to think that it's sitting there in cash. It's not. It's invested. It's invested in certain instruments that allow liquidity or you don't usually lose your principal on it. So.
Well, but I mean, I'm agreeing with you from the standpoint that if we have this $1.4 million account that right now we say has to be 50% equity, 60% fixed income, 40% cash equivalent, we're now saying we're going to take that and put it 100% in the cash equivalent bucket. So that is a fundamental change of deciding how we're going to spend that money, or how we're going to invest that money. And, is that, so we are going against what we think the short-term component investment policy is today. And does that mean we have to change the investment policy, say, this account, we don't need this general fund to be this anymore, and it's going to go somewhere else and only, and be in that one type of allocation?
Clarify further or to confuse further, what you'd be doing is making a recommendation to the commissioners to change the investment plan.
For that,
Yeah.
for that particular pot of money.
Yeah, the committee cannot actually change the investment plan. The committee makes
No, right, no, that's
recommendations
right,
to
that's
the
right.
commissioners to make the change.
Yeah, well, and that's what I meant is that's what we would have to do, would have to recommend, obviously, to the commissioners to do, yes. All right.
Basically, our sweep account is an interest-bearing checking account.
Yeah. Okay. So, but again, that leads me to believe that if that's 4%, then why isn't all this money, all the general fund and beach why isn't all the short-term and sweep accounts period making 4% if we're only making 1 or 2? So let's get the data, I think, though, and that's where we can
Talk further.
we can talk further, because that's gonna give us the full picture.
Kate, is there a comment that's up there?
I posted the definition of a sweep account in the chat.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, good, thank you.
All right.
Right, so I think we're done with these 2 agenda items, and I apologize, this has gone, we've gone kind of around, but and if I've like belabored it with my dumb questions, I apologize, but this is reflecting me being new to this, new to the committee.
You're doing great.
The third one, we're gonna just get off this and go to our other duty, which is helping with the budget. And what I was hoping we could do is, we spent a lot of the last meeting talking about the last budget resolution, a recommendation, before the commissioners voted. We provided our independent feedback. But, we merged these committees pretty late in the year. I think it was like October when we reconstituted, and pretty late in the process, and we were sort of learning as we were getting the budget. And so what I was hoping we could talk about is things that maybe we could do as a committee to help the commissioners or help in certain areas, or and maybe offer to the commissioners if there's special projects or something you want us to work on that would be helpful. But what would make things, easier going forward into next year? So does anybody have any thoughts on that?
One thing, and I think it was Sheena did it last year, if I'm not mistaken, we had the big parking debacle. Do we raise fees? How much do we raise fees? What days do we raise fees? Do we extend our days? And I believe it was you that had 3 or 4 pages of what each one of those would be if you raised it to $3, if you raised $3.50, if you did May 15th, and that was awesome. I don't know how much work that involved. I know it was appreciated. I know we don't have access to that kind of a database, but that was easy. Look at it, figure it out. And I like to read stuff because you and I played that game. I thought that was awesome. I just don't know what other things you would tackle besides parking with that particular type of data to present. Besides parking, where do we really get a lot of revenue? We can't say, okay, speeding tickets. That's not a non-starter.
So it'd be like, for example, the rental applications, right? Right now, they're based on the number of rooms that somebody has. So you could always look at, if we increased, if it's 2 rooms or more, it would go up to this. Kind of like what Sheena did with, if you went from $3 to $3.50 to $4, and she could show you the same thing. You could also do that with the business licenses, with the amount of folks that the fire marshal says is allowed in a business. And then we charge by that number. So if a restaurant says they can have 800 people, and then we're charging $10 per person for their rental license, business license, that would be another thing. If you raise it from $10 an hour to $12, how much more would that bring in? If you raise it to 15, how much more would that bring in? And Sheena was able, and she actually did that on a couple different, and I think that was one of them you did do, correct?
I did that for, what I did for both the rental and the business licenses is I took them up, I think 6.5%, 13.5%, 19.5%, or 7.5%, 15%, 22.5%,
You
and.
did a low, middle, high.
Yeah, I took them up, both the room, the base amount, and then the per, each additional and the per seat, additional amount. And truthfully, it didn't go up pennies until you got to a high percentage amount.
And that's a rental license.
Both the rental license
Right.
and the per seat or the per room for the hotels. But I mean, it's easy, it really, with spreadsheets, it's easy to do that kind of,
Analytics,
yeah.
And we can't raise accommodations tax, which is rental tax, by the charter, it's at 3%, and that would take a referendum, even though every other town around us is 6, 7, 8 above us when it comes to percentages. So we're kind of stuck at 3.
Lewis is raising their short-term rental. They're not raising their long-term rental, but they are raising their short-term rental. That just got approved.
So if we went from 3 to 6 in a referendum, we would double our rental by about $750,000. So we'd go up to 1.4, 1.5 from 850,000. But again, that would take a referendum to change it.
But I think what I think would be interesting, and I mean, I feel that sometimes I've got all this data, like now that I'm retired, put stuff in some spreadsheets and make some graphs, but I think, if I can summarize a little bit about our last sort of summer meeting conversation, is we're in a position where we don't have as many rental properties as we used to, and we have more people here full-time needing more services. We've made a conscious decision to increase our investment in public safety, and so, at some point the math is not going to work or may not work, but I think we need to probably, start educating the broader public of what the town financial situation is. It's not a bad situation, but we hear all these people, I just get tired of seeing what posted online. Oh, they're wasting money on this, or they're jacking up the parking and no one's gonna come here anymore and whatever. And so, maybe there are some things that we can do, put together some snapshot reports. Again, this is something that we could work on as a group, or something that, maybe publish a finance newsletter or something that just kind of at least helps people learn. I don't know, but
I'll say it out loud, because I've never been one to be the popular guy. The steady stream of income that everybody else has to live by doesn't exist in Dewey Beach.
right.
And you can't, we've looked through seat cushions for coins to try and get this town to have a budget every year. There's only so many coins in the seat cushions. There's only so many times you can go down to the couch and find a dollar bill. The commissioners, it's a lightning bolt to say we need a property tax, or we need some kind of a adjustment for a fund for
Safety tax, or whatever.
yeah, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I appreciate the fact that Bill said in the Cape Gazette article that I read when I was out, that the town's not paying a dime for our new town hall. No, we're not. But
We're not
we should.
raising any tax.
But it doesn't solve the underlying problems, which is a separate thing, and I just think, sooner or later, it's gonna come to a head. We don't, I don't want to pay more if anybody does, but anyway, are there things that we could do to help?
Mark can weigh in on this. Every referendums for school tax, it's essentially the same thing. In today's, if you're gonna have a referendum, there's a cost to put it together and get it done. So that's a cost that we can improve to say, let's get the public's input of would they agree to tax themselves.
Well, the answer is no. Nobody.
In today's climate, that's nothing to do with the commissioners, mayor, town manager, anyway. You're gonna vote if you're gonna tax yourself.
Yeah. But to Iris's point, to educate people to go,
Right.
we pay a beach tax to live in our town,
Right.
whether it's $10 or $250.
Right.
That's all you pay to live in Dewey Beach. You don't pay for an ambulance, you don't pay for police department, you don't pay your salary, you don't pay your salary, you don't pay your salary. We get this, nice computer, everybody can zoom in on meetings and stuff. Everything's accessible to everybody, but nobody has skin in the game.
Well, but somehow anybody that comes and sits in this room and starts trying to manage everything, though, is on board with it. So how do you tip that balance? I think that's
So you
what
wanna
it's-
put together a referendum that people would say yes to.
Yeah.
Is that what you're referencing, Iris? Possible referendum?
Whether
At some
it's
point
now,
down the
whether it's
road,
this year, 2 years, 3 years from now, I think that there may be groundwork that needs to be laid, and we could possibly help do that. Because we're not elected to, right? Nobody's electing us, so they can be mad at the finance committee, the commissioners could say, well, I don't know, that's what my finance committee said, right? But there's a political issue there too, so, I don't know.
No, I would not, certainly, there are times for referendum, you just gotta be really mindful of when you decide to do that, how to do that, then, and,
Right.
where.
And are people gonna say yes to it,
referendums-
or you just spent the money to find out you were gonna get a no, but you knew getting a no was gonna happen anyhow, so why
It's
spend
hard
the money?
now, even, as you see in our local school district, they lost two back to back.
Back-to-back school
And they
tax.
decided not to do it the third time.
Yeah, and
And it's also how you do it. I mean, if you do it and you do it with a lot of transparency, it's possible that you can get to pass.
I would say we could probably do something, but push it out. This wouldn't happen until 2030 or something. But you vote on it today that, 5 years from now, we're gonna, because we nickel dime everything to survive, right? So, to Zeke's point, but people don't know that's how we do it. They say, my tax dollars went we didn't tax you anything. You paid zero. You didn't give us anything, and you're complaining about that. You're spending too much money here, there, or wherever. So I just think the climate today, considering that the state just imposed a 4.5% short-term rental tax, put a rental tax, raise ours another 3%. That's 7.5% now that property owner that rents their property out pays now. They're not going to be very happy with that. There's about 700 of those out of about 700 rental licenses, right, Sheena, give or take? I think you told me that.
Closer to 6.
600?
Usually hangs around 6 to 650, something
Yeah.
there.
I wouldn't be happy with that, but I'd go for it.
Right. But, but if you just got a 4.5% tax and then
Yeah.
we come along and
And
throw
your
another.
property taxes just got
What are you doing to
reassessed.
me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't even know what that reassessment is. So I'm not saying to do it now, but I'm just saying, it's something you gotta say it out loud eventually.
Right. Have a referendum that this wouldn't take place until some point down the road. So everybody can plan for it, and it's gotta be nominal. And we're gonna replace it with something else. It gave us we need a steady revenue stream, but then we can't take the steady revenue stream, make it a new revenue stream, plus don't, still keep all the other things that we have here. So maybe we lower parking to $3, but
Yeah.
hey, given a vote, hey, can I keep parking at $4 and property tax you? You're gonna say, no, keep it at $4.
But I think there's
These
trend,
are-
but we
this
have
is the
trend
quandary,
lines, right,
right?
that you can
Right.
look at, right?
Right.
Because, I think, and again, some of it is just, how do you look at all that data?
Well,
Because you've got, okay, we had all this many problems and arrests and public urination, right? And now we spent on the police and those have gone down, right? So you see positive impacts of the investment. You can show data we're paying less than other people, so we've got good anyway, I don't know, if there's some data analytics that might be helpful to look at, I don't know, I was gonna play with spreadsheets just because.
I think one of the things Hurricane Sandy showed us, thank God we weren't a recipient of a RAF, but all the people that came down from their rentals that were destroyed in Jersey discovered Delaware. When they discovered Delaware, they're like, wait a minute, I pay $22,000 a year on my property for my beach house, for my second, my third house. You guys are paying $1,200 a year. And they're like, oh my God, this is great, we found the golden place to go. It's not like they're gonna start spending the money, going, okay, well, I always spend 22 grand, so I have no problem. They wanna keep that in their pocket. They're gonna buy someplace down here and do it. But like I say, we've got people who have found this place is like, wow, this is nothing compared to what we're used to. And like I say, the average person, I think it was on the radio today, that comes down here, has no kids, they're not in school, it's their grandkids that are in school. So the school tax, why am I paying school tax if I'm 75 years old and I don't have any kids in school? That's another discussion all in different ways, but we just do have to find a steady stream somewhere. And like I say, start the conversation for a period down the road. It's not happening in 6 months, it's not happening in a year, not happening in 2, because there's also, like you say, a lot of other stuff coming up into play. But we gotta start acclimating people to go, it's coming, guys. There's a train coming down the tracks. It's going to arrive.
One common thread I've heard, what everybody's saying is we're losing revenue streams that we used to have. Rentals going down, everything's happening. So using something along the lines of we're changing, we just want to maintain. We're not looking to, put a gold roof on a brand new city hall. We just want to be able to replace it when we need to. We want to pay our policemen and continue the services. That's kind of a theme that would be good, because I think when you mentioned before about the school referendum, weren't they trying to get some pool or something going in there, and they were, and then they weren't going to let people use it. They're going to charge them for it. So that's one of the reasons I think it failed.
Right.
And I see a lot of people pulling on the rope the same direction here, which is good.
Yeah.
I see a lot of work coming from town hall. I see you guys out there all the time running around doing
Yeah,
stuff.
it's true.
I see you people always, even when I'm not at a meeting, I can see what's going on when I'm away. Everybody's trying to do the right thing, but like you say, we're all starting to run out of places to look.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're wasting, like you said, peeing in your yard, more police, less peeing in your yard. You're seeing the investment in the cops make a positive in something happen in your town. But we're starting to run out of, we need to boost this, but where do we get it to boost it?
I think if we showed trends and saying, hey, let's project this out 5 years from now, like what's parking gonna cost? We're gonna still continue to give, our police are still gonna need raises. Our lifeguards, we gotta stay,
That's what I'm saying.
and everybody's a few dollars an hour higher than us. Eventually, we just have to keep pace with everybody.
Yeah.
So at that point, if we project that, if these are the expenses, just maintain what we have today, don't grow. But then, what do we do with these revenues to, support that? So that's,
Yeah.
do you want to be paying $10 an hour? I was just in Siesta Key this week, and I sent Bill a note. Guess how much parking is in Siesta Key, if you've ever been there? $32 for 2 hours. $16 an hour.
Wow.
2 hour minimum. So if we put a $32 an hour sign up here, can you imagine people are complaining about 4. We agonize from going from 350 to 4. Like, it's $32.
All right,
So, Iris, did you like the way we did the budget process this year? We've
Great.
seen it, or should we start a little bit earlier? And so you're involved a little early? Because what happens is at the end of April, Sheena asks the department heads to give us a rough budget.
April?
Well, yeah. April, May, we start looking at a rough budget from the department heads for next year.
April,
Yeah.
I'm doing the audit.
Yeah. So we get that, right? We get the department heads what they want. It's their wish list. Like how much do they think they're gonna need for doing their next year's budget? We get that, and then we sit down with them and we start looking at what they're asking for and figuring out how we're gonna pay for it. Then we have quarterly meetings also with our department heads and let them know how they're doing through the year. Are they overburning or underburning on their budget? Are they spending too much on car repairs for the police department? Where are we gonna get the money to make up the difference there? So we work with them on that. And then as we get closer, Sheena starts putting the budget together, and then we start sending things over to your team to look at. And then when December rolls around, we look at what our budget, what we projected, and where we actually are. And where we spent maybe a little too much in one area and not enough in other areas, we do a budget amendment to balance the bubble then. And that's kind of how, we've kind of worked this out in the last 2 years. Sheena's put together a good program, and we've been able to do that and move forward. And then this year, when we presented the budget to the commissioners, we actually had the police chief, the lifeguard captain, the maintenance supervisor, we actually had them sitting right here. So when we presented it, if there were any questions, and some of you were here for some of that, we could get those answered right away.
Right.
So my question to you is, what can we do to make that better? Can we get you information earlier? Do you want information earlier? Do we need to start the process a little earlier? And she does have an audit going on, but that's kind of the schedule we go with.
Well, for me, and I don't want to speak for everyone else, but, for me, I think what would be helpful is, in the spreadsheets, and I don't want to create extra work, but it would be helpful in both the monthly ones, where there's a variance of more than whatever, what is driving it, so that we're not having to ask all the time what it is. It might be, and I'm not saying every little line, but sometimes it's like, okay, this is only in certain months, and there might be certain places, but I felt like when we were having a discussion about the new budget compared to the old budget, I didn't really understand very well how we got to where we were the prior year to be able to assess. So that might be one thing. And then when we get the draft budget, you know, we've got like lines of personnel and stuff, and and maybe just a cheat sheet. Okay, this is for, you know, X number of police officers, X number of seasonal. So it's that next level of just some notes. So, oh yeah, that went up because we hired another person. So when I look at it, you know, from time to time, you know, from the draft to the next draft or whatever, I kind of remember what it is without having to.
Yeah,
Does that make sense? Like, I can help do that, yeah.
I've already got notes set up. One of the problems we've had, we had some, issues that this past year we had, things that we had to reassign.
Right.
So switching between different, sorry, it's been a rough week, my brain's not thinking. Different chiefs, you know, different people classified things differently. So now that we're all on the same page, things are being classified the same way. They're going to be that way going forward. So, but we've got notes already set up.
Right.
It's already set up that way. Now, as far as month to month, some of the items, I mean, like payroll, I do that based on number of pay periods. Utilities, I'm straight lining it. I'm not, you know, I'm not doing that historically. Revenues, I basically do historically, but you can't be sure.
Right.
There, you know, doing a budget, spreading a budget out across 12 months, that's a hit or miss thing. Even if you do it across the 5-year history, you're not going to be exactly.
No, and it's not exact science, but I think,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's like, again, you know, if we just kind of have in mind where things get south, then we'll all know, yes, we absolutely have to make that higher next year. Or, oh, we really didn't spend that, or it just might save time just to, and again, I'm gonna pay more attention to it. I'm gonna start coming to, you know, being at the commissioner meetings when you go over this. I don't know that, you know, there needs to be I mean, the other thing would be when we have these meetings, maybe there is a quick summary, you know, just give us you know, and I didn't put on the agenda, but in the future, just tell us, you know, how we're doing, just so, again, so it's just top of mind, maybe that's helpful to us. But I don't wanna make extra work for you all.
Yeah, we had, the commissioners did approve us moving to moving to Edmonds, which is our main processing, but it's a 12 to 15 month implementation process. So I'm still going to be we still got double entry for the next year with QuickBooks and Edmonds. So but once we get through this year, then the reporting is going to be so much easier. And the reports that are going to be put out are going to be much, much better and much easier on everybody. But, you know, so it's going to be a little lethargic for a little bit longer. But then I'll be able to pump out pretty much anything anybody wants.
Awesome. You should never say things. You're gonna get a request every day.
Keeps
Too
me out of
kind,
trouble.
Sheila.
Thank you. Well, as who did all the talking, as local, anybody on the phone have
I think variance reporting, you know, after a certain threshold is a reasonable ask, and it will get better when she gets everything into Edmonds. I get that. The other question I had in terms of not only being involved earlier, but also, the capital budget, I guess, is a different process, but I don't recall us ever discussing it, and I don't know if we were supposed to.
You mean capital improvements?
Yeah, capital instead of we have the operating budget. We spent a lot of time on that. That was great, and she did a fantastic job with it.
Right, the capital improvements budget, that was only implemented,
That's one of the things we've done just in the last couple of years.
Well, we talked about that at the workshop.
That
And there was a section on that, and we went down that list, as I recall, in the joint meeting with the commissioners.
Yeah, that was only implemented a couple years ago. There never was a true capital improvements budget for the town. And it was one of the things that it's more of all right, these are the big things we really need, but we need to run the town first. We need to keep the town running. The goal after the town hall is completed is to be able to fund the capital improvements for 3 years out. But as I said, that's after the town hall is completed. Right now, we're able to fund 1 year at a time. We know what we'd like to be able to do for the next couple of years. And right now, the police are able to get a lot of grants. So that helps. You know, one of the things that was on the capital improvement, the capital expenditures thing, they've gotten grants for. So that helps.
So the mayor asked
I
if-
get that it's new. That's great, and it's great that you guys are doing. I don't. And again, if Elizabeth and Paul don't need our input on it, then let's not waste our time doing it. But cash is cash. You still got to stroke a check, whether it's CapEx or OpEx. And if it's not within our purview, great. If it's in our purview, then we should be looking at it in conjunction with everything else.
It will be. It's with it being a new thing. We're still trying to get our feet under it. It definitely will be under your purview. It's just we're still trying to figure everything out onto the process of how to get everything presented. And
Fair play. Thank you.
So, for example, infrastructure projects. The mayor said, hey, give me the next 3 years. Where do you think you're going to need money for infrastructure? But for this coming year, right, that was in with the 2 police cars, a new ATV for the lifeguards, and then as you go down, there's what I projected for infrastructure. So we may need $300,000 for infrastructure, but then I may get grants from the state to cover half of that. But we won't know, just like the police department doesn't know if they're going to get all their grants. So we have to prepare in case we don't. Then if we get the grants, then that's good. Then our infrastructure amount just, builds. So it's a process, and Sheena and I have been working on it. We're always trying to get better. And I think this last year's budget, I like the way we did. We came up, we had the folks sit here and answer the questions from the commissioners. And if you think we can do something better, just let us know.
No, I think that the workshop I thought was really, really great. It was really a nice way to kind of, get everybody in one room and not have multiple separate meetings.
At that point, we have a general idea as to where things are. We've gotten through the major revenue streams of the year, and we've gotten through the budget amendment, and we're able to, have a better idea as to where everything is. Unfortunately, with the way our revenue streams flow,
Please excuse me.
Hope you feel better.
I feel better, Suzanne.
the budget amendment comes so late in our fiscal year. And thus the workshop comes so late in the year.
Well, what I wonder is though, is at that workshop, if we have a quorum of the finance committee there, I don't know if there's a way to do this, but is there a way that we could, if there's certain recommendations or things, could we vote in real time on, on recommendations for that next draft? Because essentially, the draft that we couldn't vote on because we didn't have a quorum was really the draft that arose out of that workshop recommendation. And so maybe we could cut out a step some kind of way, or have us quickly convene a finance committee meeting separately afterwards to put motions or something, just a thought.
Iris, if I might, in the meeting that we lost the quorum, people had ideas of some things that they wanted to look at going forward to contribute to the budget. So maybe this is a parallel train track thing that can happen. This committee can look at some of the things with Sheena's help that we've discussed, like raising this, lowering that, whatever. And that way we can inform the budget process. I don't know, I know that the committee felt frustrated because they didn't get to contribute as much as they wanted to into the development of the budget. And that might be a way to get people involved, because I appreciate the town manager's offer to do it sooner, but I don't think we can logistically do it sooner because we don't know where we are sooner.
Right, no, and I guess some of it is I don't wanna create more work, it's like if there's any way we can help, but you're right, there are things we could look at maybe earlier, so we could think about that.
I mean, we see the budget every month at our council meeting. I mean, and that's shared with everybody, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can see where everything's tracking. We only have a handful of revenue streams, so.
Right.
Yeah, Iris and team, it's Vinny. I have a couple thoughts on the budget. I'm obviously very new to this, so I want to be able to come to these meetings and meet with my peers here and bring ideas to increase revenue and drive down expenses. One thing that would help me, I don't know if it exists now, but having the detail behind these revenue streams. Like, for example, I see rental license. What does that mean? How do we charge it? What's the math behind budgeting and how we actually receive that revenue? Having that type of detail for every revenue stream and every expense would allow me to take time on the side, look at it, look where we are, and come to the team and the group and the committee with recommendations on how we can hopefully make some things better. That would be very helpful for me. So do those descriptions at a more granular level exist?
So it's in
I
code.
think we have,
Yeah.
It's
we
in our
have some
town
of the
code.
data, but it's in, there's stuff that was in a lot of different places, and so, maybe we could try to consolidate that, because I do feel like, for example, I saw here's how many seats per restaurant was in one thing, and then
Right.
also, here's the rental rates, and maybe we need to just kind of put it in a master.
Perfect example, Iris. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Like I said, I feel like I've seen a lot of it,
That's a
it's
good
just,
suggestion.
again, and you may have, 18 different emails with one piece of the story, or half the emails, I don't know, so we can sort that out easily,
And
though.
we can have a little workshop just amongst ourselves, so anybody that's interested in knowing how these revenue streams come in.
Maybe that is, maybe.
I think the
maybe-
general public doesn't know how this place runs.
But maybe that's something.
Maybe that's a topic of a meeting in the
Right.
summer,
Yeah,
a
maybe-
revenue meeting.
Maybe Sheena can just tell you what all the revenue streams are, send them to you, and you could divide it up among your committee, and they can look them up in the code and then put it back, bring it back together, and we could talk about it at a workshop.
That's a great
And
suggestion.
or do a
Yeah,
or just
very
call it
good
a revenue
suggestion, yeah.
brainstorming workshop or something like that. And then maybe that's just a focused time where people can bring ideas. So we talked about it, but we sort of didn't understand enough and where the guardrails are.
There really aren't that many revenue streams.
No, they're not, unless we make some stuff up.
It could be a very short meeting, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I would also include, like for the revenue stream, who's paying it? Is it the resident? Is it the visitors?
Right.
Is it the business? And then over and above that, what would a change require? If it's referendum involved, then obviously that's going to be a lot more difficult than a non-referendum item. So that's the kind of detail I'm looking for.
Any other comments, suggestions?
I think we've heard from everybody now, right? I think that's it. Anybody else here in the room? Any more comments? I think, this is like a TBD, but for me, I will use this discussion sort of maybe to look at sort of what, some future agenda items to tackle. And again, Paul and Elizabeth, I would say just offer back to the commissioners if there's some special projects that we could work on or whatever that would help. Because I know you guys have a high workload and a lot of this stuff exists and we're asking questions that I think we have the data to go and dig in and probably research it. It's just a matter of deciding, give ourselves some action items and looking at it. And I guess, the only other thing would be our next meeting. And I don't know, what I've been trying to do is do it a week before the commissioners meeting. So,
I would just ask that you just double check if there's any other comments by anybody. I know you said it once before, but
any
we've had
public
people-
comments?
Yeah, just one more time.
All right, do we have any public comments? Sorry. I don't see anybody else dialed in.
Thank you.
Our friends from the news didn't come in today. But yeah, so.
Our next commissioner meeting should be the 18th, right?
But it's-
April 18th?
It's been moved to the 25th because the 18th is Good Friday, which is a state holiday. And so the 18th is not available for finance either.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna be in Nashville for Easter as well, so.
So backing up would be April 11th if we're sticking to Fridays.
But we probably won't have the reports, but I guess the next question is also, given where we are, do we need to have an April meeting, or do we do our next meeting in May? We don't have a monthly requirement, do we?
No.
You have a quarterly requirement
Yeah,
to review the Brown Advisory investment reports have to be reviewed on a quarterly basis.
yeah. Because I feel like if we if we do April 11th, we won't have any of the data anyway, and then you guys are meeting later, and again, I don't think there's gonna be any sweeping actions unless we get, we're gonna get some of these Brown questions answered, and so if there's some urgency there, we would wanna meet sooner.
Okay.
But let me see what information I get
Schedule that
out of
via
them,
email.
when they can do it, and we can do this by email. If we have a meeting in April, I am gone most of the month, so somebody else will have to be here in person. Maybe I'll
Do
delegate
it when you
the,
get back.
yeah, so. We'll look at that, okay.
Iris, pardon me, before we adjourn, I'm going to do what Kate normally would do. I really appreciate the emails that go out with all the information so everybody has it in one place. I want to remind the committee members that no discussion can take place in email. It has to take place in this committee meeting. It needs to be a public discussion that the public can witness. Thank you.
Does that include, because I think I'm guilty. Does that include asking clarifying questions or like you just can't, just anything? Can't use email, period.
Correct. It's subject to FOA. It needs to be public. Yes.
Needs do not reply.
Thank you for the
Do not
coaching.
Just do not reply all. You can reply to it, just don't reply to all. Because that, essentially you're creating a meeting. If you're replying to all, you're discussing something.
So I can ask Iris something.
You can ask Iris a question.
You can ask Iris anything.
All right,
Good coaching. Thank you very much. And
all right.
thank you.
I
listeners.
appreciate it, and I'm learning too, so.
But
right.
if you do reply to Iris and you and Iris have an email back and forth, that is subject to FOA. It's not a violation of the meeting criteria. It just can be subject to somebody could ask
discovery.
to see
I
it.
understand.
Yeah.
Well, I think if it's something that can wait till a meeting anyway, then we can just wait till the meeting, so.
All right.
I'll try to stop.
All right. So can we, I guess now, we're ready for a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Any opposed?